Hello, everyone. I am Milton, and you are watching another episode of R19.io podcast. Today's guest is someone I first met at OWASP Global AppSec in Lisbon. And I say he's not only great in his work, but also has fun and unique personality. Johan, I needed to start with this. What the story behind this unicorn horn and the rainbow glasses was just for fun or is a part of your conference style? Welcome first.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here. And the main reason why I started to wear this is because I was attending the Lisbon conference last year for OWASP Global AppSec, and we were going to present the next version of OWASP Cornucopia 2.0.
Oh, okay.
And we wanted to celebrate this because it was 10 years since OWASP Cornucopia was first published. So we thought it would be a great idea to actually show that this is actually a cool thing, that we actually want to celebrate it. We want to have fun. We want to show people that it is application security and threat modeling can be fun. And that was the background for this. Of course, there are several reasons why I continue to do this, mainly 3 reasons. And the most important reason is that when we have fun, we remember better what we are talking about. So there is this sort of like a science behind memory retention that says that actually our memory actually reclines over time. So this conversation that we're going to have now is going to be partially forgotten. Tomorrow morning, you will probably just remember about half of what we have been talking about today. And but when we have fun, we actually remember what we have been talking about to a higher extent. And so it's actually great to actually try to tap into that when we're actually talking about application security. The other thing is that basically when we do celebrate our achievements, we also motivate ourselves to actually work harder and more and better for doing great things. And so it's also a way to actually motivate the people that I'm actually working with when we're doing threat modeling. So when they see that I'm celebrating, they are celebrating. We are all celebrating, and we're having fun, and that makes us want to do this more because we get a good feedback from it. And then the third thing is basically that when I look like this, you don't take me that seriously. So one of the problems that we have as application security engineers is that when we talk to people, people get afraid about talking about application security to us because they're afraid that they may say something that seems stupid. But nothing is so stupid that you can't ask questions about it. And I believe that if you sort of come around and not take yourself that seriously, people will meet you halfway, and it will be easier for them to actually ask the more important questions that they actually wonder about.
Okay, interesting. I really never thought about this story. I really thought many other things, but I don't thought about have one science behind this story, and this is really interesting. This have a nice way to start this episode, and thank you again for meet with me today. And after the unicorn story, tell us about your career path. How did you work from on big Scandinavian med websites to work deep into security, architecture, and DevSecOps?
Well, okay, so I actually started my career creating a website for a fiber optic company in Norway. And the first commercial website I built was actually hacked 3 times. 2 times by ransomware. and one time was just XSS. And, and even though at that time I thought that I had like everything figured out, I did the most stupidest of mistakes, and it made me and the company look really, really bad. And in the end, I actually learned from that we actually have to improve ourselves, and we may not know everything. We will make mistakes. But the most important part about that is that we can turn it around and get the knowledge that we need to actually build great stuff. And so over time, I've actually become more and more interested in security. And eventually I actually transitioned into working with application security full time. But I didn't start out like that. I started as a web designer. I worked myself up to be a developer, first a junior developer, then senior developer, then lead developer, then lead architect, and so on. So, and eventually, the more the more and more I started to work with application and application development, I eventually ended up working with security full time. And so that's why I'm working as application security engineer today.
Okay, this is interesting because in another episode, when I've been talking with security professionals, usually they started not directly with security. Usually they started with data center, consulting, and stuff like that, and after moved to application security or pen testing, or go deep into cybersecurity itself. And this is I think this is really common with people more old school, like let me say, because in the last episodes I've been talking with many biggest cybersecurity professionals, and all say the same. And but this is one this is another question for the future. But you have been working on high traffic, websites with high traffic, like VG, Denmark Radio. What were the biggest security problems in keeping platforms with millions of users safe? This is like you said before, in your first attempt, let me say, you had your first website hacked 3 times, and right now you are behind the biggest site with the biggest audience. And let me know how you balance security in sites or platforms like that with millions of users safe.
Yes. So security is not necessarily related to how big the site is. There's a lot of sites out there that actually doesn't have the security level that smaller sites has. So it's more about how important security is in order for the company to actually sell the products. So today I'm actually working on a product that actually require much less traffic than what I'm used to from previously work, but that has a much higher level of security involved in order to sort of like secure the site, because the customers requires it. And so it actually depends on what the customers is asking for, not so much what the users need. And it also depends on a lot of other factors, like, okay, do you actually process sensitive information? Are there sort of like a lot of foreign actors that actually would like to get hold of your system because it may give them an advantage somehow. For example, it could be a governmental site, something like that. These kind of sites I haven't really worked on. I have more, what I used to do was that I used to do architecture and development for news sites. And you might imagine that actually the security requirements was very stringent for this kind of type of sites, but they wasn't at that time when I was working there. That may have changed now, but actually now that I'm actually working with companies that's actually storing board documents and the data that is related to mergers and acquisitions and these kind of things, the security requirements are much sort of like more stringent. There's a much higher level of security than what I had been working with in the past. So it actually doesn't depend so much on the traffic that the site actually gets.
Yeah, but I think that this is really when you heard okay, sites like that with millions of users, usually it's a really a big responsibility, and then it's not just put the site online, is have big big work, the big hard work behind the scene. And it's really people like you are behind the scene in many countries, in many cities around the world. And this is talk with you today about this topic. It's really interesting because um, this space is not only uh, for hackers, but for professional application securities like you, because this is interesting. See the another side, the importance of the architecture, the importance of SDLC, for example, DevSecOps and stuff like that, but security inside of development process. And this is really interesting because many businesses and many people in 2025 don't know yet, of course, the importance of DevSecOps or PUT security inside the development cycle. And when I say sites with millions of users, usually when you receive a proposal to construct, or you receive a proposal to create security behind, create security measures, usually it's really a big challenge. Yeah, this is my thought. And leverage this question: was there a special that changed how you see security today? Like you said, you started building websites and you had your website hacked 3 times. But what this is what this is was the major thing that changed your mind about security. Let me know about what you think about that.
Well, actually, getting your website hacked 3 times actually should change your mind on security. So I think actually that was the definitive moment.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
There was also a change for me recently when I started working in admin control, and we started to think about, okay, how can we actually implement security upfront in a way that is scalable and can make developers actually scale it and do it themselves without too much interference. How can we sort of like do that in a democratic way and let the team decide for themselves what the security requirements should be without being afraid that they will make decisions that might be bad for the business or the customers. And so one of the things that I was thinking about when thinking about these questions is, okay, so if we're going to do security upfront, we need security requirements. That's the first thing. And we had them. We were following OWASP ASVS and OWASP MSVS, which is sort of like a standard for application security requirements and the verification of those. But the problem was that I would never ever be able to get them to read all of those requirements or figure out what requirements is actually required in any given time. And so the problem is that we were sort of like looking at the requirements, and then we had all these software teams and they were developing different functionality. And we were not able to sort of like get up front and say, these are the requirements now, these are requirements now, because the requirements were always changing because of the functionality that was continuously developed. So we thought that, okay, what we have to do is that we have to do something simple that everyone can understand and everyone can partake in. And so we found this game called OWASP Cornucopia. And OWASP Cornucopia is a trend modeling tool in the form of a card game that actually assists software development teams identify security requirements in agile and conventional and formal development processes. And that allowed us to be able to define these requirements, do the initial secure design, and let the developers decide for themselves how that design should look like in a secure way. And so instead of sort of like coming afterwards and saying that, okay, these are the requirements that you should have followed, the developers actually are able to then find the requirements up front and be able to implement them as they are doing their development sprint.
Okay, interesting. I remember that in the conference that I met with you in OWASP Global AppSec in Lisbon, I remember that have a card. It's like a card game. I don't know if it was in your conference, but I remember. Yeah, I think that was in your conference. That in your session that I didn't receive. I don't remember now, but I remember that was one box with many cards inside there. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah, exactly. WASP. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, this is interesting show for the people, because many people, including me at the time, don't know yet what it's about, because it's really important. It's a form of gamification of and like to introduce like a fun way security in development cycle. Yeah,
it's absolutely. So the whole point here is that we let the developers decide for themselves through playing a game. And so we make it fun, we make it interesting, and it makes them remember the security requirements better when they are doing their software development. So instead of sort of like doing the big design up front, or the sort of like the big review afterwards, we let the developers actually do small security design increments for each sprint, and then they through playing the game, having a session that lasts for 1.5 hours, something like that, they come up with the threats that actually matters to them. And then when they have found these threats, on the bottom of the cards, you will see that there are the security requirements that is actually relevant according to the threats that they actually identified as important to the feature that they are building. And so that becomes then the requirements that's important for the secure design that they are building.
Okay, interesting.
And so in that way, we were able to sort of like implement a secure development lifecycle that actually have secure design upfront, and which is scalable, where I don't need to be there at any given time. And there was actually one time where I was sick in bed, and I had actually called in for a session on threat modeling with the team. And I sent another mail, said that I have to cancel it because I'm so sick, I cannot participate. And as I was lying in bed, I heard this beep from my phone. And so I rushed up and I rushed to the phone, and I saw that actually the team had started doing the threat modeling without me. And so I sort of like was horrified, like, what? I'm not part of the session. How can this be? And so actually the team didn't really think that it was important for me to be there because they know how to do threat modeling. And so the gamification actually helps the people that's not that experienced in threat modeling and security requirements to actually be able to participate in a meaningful way. And I actually have testers, I have developers, we have product managers participating, sometimes even designers. And so they all are able to have their say. And so that's the great thing about this. There's a bunch of other things I could say about this as well.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah. And this is really a big insightful. I already use the same. It's not the same strategy because I'm not working directly with development, but in my businesses I use the same strategy with gamification when I needed to release one new course and stuff like that. And usually I like to use this type of platform or this type of game to engage of people, to look at that and think this is like a fun way to learning or a fun way to implement or a fun way to work. And this is really is because the more we work, if you stop to think, we work 12 hours per day, sometimes 16 hours per day. Our job, it's really sometimes stressful, and if you don't create ways to be more relaxed, you sometimes create one toxic environment and people that don't like to work and stuff like that. And then when you introduce inside your team, your businesses, this is really can be it's a motivation technique. It's really interesting.
I think actually it can really change your culture. The gamification is actually helping in many ways. One thing is that it helps you to scale your SDLC processes. And the other thing that it also makes people learn in a much better way than they did before. It helps people to remember things. And so that's sort of like the key to it. I remember when we were starting to do threat modeling, I invited the team to have a threat modeling session. And this was before we started to use OWASP Cornucopia. And we had actually prepared ourselves. We had sort of like made a big drawing that we were supposed to use for threat modeling sessions. We had talked about doing stride per element and these kind of things. And we came into the session, and as the session moved on, I noticed that it was just me and the security manager that was actually talking. And as I was into one of these monologues, as I am doing my monologue right now, I sort of like had this out-of-body experience where I could sort of like notice everything that was happening around me. So I looked up on the video conferencing screen, and what I could see there was that the people in the meeting was falling asleep. And when I mean falling asleep, I mean they were snoring, really snoring. And so what
this
is
is
the
make
point of
really a
having a
different.
treadmilling sessions if people are sleeping in the meetings? But
Yeah.
that is actually the reality of many of the meetings that we're having. They are boring. And people are, if they're not sleeping, they are half asleep in most of the sessions. And we need to change that in order to change the culture. And so that's why I promised myself I will never, ever do a session like that again. If I do that, I would rather stop working as an application security engineer than actually continue to do that in such a boring way.
Yeah, this is really interesting, insightful. Yeah, because this is smart. This is really a smart way to conduct people, and in the same time implement the security culture. This is really a smart way, and I know that you working with both scenarios, a full stack developer and security engineer, and how what this mix helped you find problems early in SDLC. This is interesting because uh, you have this you have the both sides, and then this is interesting for the people that are listening or watching, understand how this is really can help people find problems early and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really helps to be, like when you're working as an application security engineer, it actually helps to be a generalist. We know a little bit of everything. And that actually helps you a lot in order to implement the processes that you need to implement, because you are looking at it from the perspective of the people around you that you're working with. And that's very important to keep that in mind, to be empathic, to see the people around you and what is their challenges and what they are working with and how they are working, to understand how you can actually sort of like front the challenges that they have and be able to solve that in a meaningful way. And so for me, having a background as a developer, of course, helped me to understand other developers better. Of course, I have also had to be able to learn to think as a tester as well. And of course, when I was starting to work with application security, that was one of the things that was actually new to me. That actually you have to do a bit of pen testing as well. You cannot just do security engineering. You have to do a bit of everything. And so that was one of the things that was new to me when I started to work as an application security engineer. But it was also one of the things that was also exciting as it was new. And I think one of the great things about being application security engineer is that you get to learn or do a bit of everything.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel the same. Many people don't know, but I started my career like a developer, and I moved to infrastructure and stuff like that. But this is really interesting how those things that I learned a long time ago I bring with me, and this helped me with many other things because in my job I needed to do penetration testings, static analysis, dynamic analysis, auditings, and many other things. And this is interesting because, like you said, you needed to right now to really to be a big professional with many challenges every single day. You need to know a little bit of many things, a little about development, a little about API, and many stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
One of
it's
the
really.
things that was really new to me, I remember, was that actually I started actually having, well, one of the things that was new to me was that we had mobile apps. And I had never done any development for mobile apps before, so I didn't actually know how mobile development actually worked. But one of the things that was great was that at that time, MSVS, OWASP MSVS 2.0 got released. And so the new version of the MSVS actually have a lot of great documentation, especially on the mobile application security test guide. And so when I was sat down and I looked through the mobile application security test guide, I got a lot of new and great information about that particular topic, even though I didn't know anything about developing mobile apps. And so based on that, I actually learned myself how to do mobile development. And that actually became the basis for creating the mobile and the OWASP Cornucopia mobile edition for doing threat modeling for mobile apps that we actually released last year.
Yeah, this is interesting. I remember in the last OWASP Global AppSec that I went in 2024. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 2024. The WASP basically was updated with many new tools, many documents, and like you said, right now when you look for mobile apps, for example, in both sides, Android or iOS, you have a lot of documentations, you have a lot of tests that you basically you already have a strategy created, and you just can follow, and you already have a security strategies that was built for security professionals of the community, that you can use that for increase of the security your mobile application. And inside that, of course, because right now it's really interesting, because it's not more about web applications or mobile application. Right now you have microservices, you have API, you have mobile apps,
you have AI.
Exactly, AI. And you have one the big environment in the same place. And this is really, it's a part of my next question for you. How you put security in the modern systems? How you think about, especially when talk microservices that involve mobile, that involve AI, that involve this environment? Let me know how you think and you put security inside that.
Well, actually, it's not that different. It's really, of course, there are different domains, right? So depending on what kind of systems you're actually working with, whether it's a web app, it's a mobile app, or it's an API or it's IoT, it all follows the same principles. It's all all about following the underlying principles that governs them. Of course, there are some things that you have to be a bit more careful with when you're creating a mobile app versus when you're creating a web app, and you have different challenges. But all in all, it's the same principles that you need to follow. So it's not that different. You need to stay on top of your game. You need to follow what is happening out there in terms of what other people are able to figure out when it comes to these new technologies that actually comes along, whether it's AI or IoT or what it is, or if it's cloud development. You have to be able to do a little bit of everything. And so that is one of the things that is good, is if if you are going to do security for something, try to figure out how these things are actually built. Try to think around with them so that you're able to sort of
Look
have an
inside
opinion.
there.
Yes, exactly. You need to have an opinion on how these systems are actually built. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to say something about how you can do that in a secure way. The other thing is that you will also need to be able to do a bit of testing as well, to be able to understand how these systems actually behave. So that's also the other part of it. And then it's also important to understand something about design. So to be able to have the tools and the knowledge to be able to design something in a secure way.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's not that different whether you're actually doing AI development or you're doing web development. It's the same concerns. Of course, when you're doing AI development, you have to be concerned that actually you have an actor that is the AI instance that can actually do things much more dynamically than what a normal system can do, but it's very much like having sort of like a user inside the system that sort of like can affect the state of everything around it. So you just have to do sort of like follow the same principles, use zero trust to do security by design and by default and all these things. Make sure that the network is secure. Make sure that there is that you sanitize the data, that you validate it, that there's authentication, authorization, and all of that, which actually you have in any kind of system.
Yeah, exactly. You need to think about all the phases of the architecture, the security in rest, security in transit, and many measures that you need to implement. Not only while you are development a system, but when this system
and if there's
is
something you don't know, check OWASP and their documentation, or go online, have a look at what is already out there. There's a lot of great people there that you can just reach out to and ask them questions.
Okay, interesting.
And so use those resources for what they're worth. And if you are able to actually have an opinion about these things, don't forget to share them. Remember to bring something back to the community as well. If it's just doing some translations or what it is, please contribute, because application security has to be open source. It has to be transparent. It should be there for everyone to learn something, to take something home that they can use in a meaningful way. And that's one of the things I love about application security. It's a very open community, and I hope that remains that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, OWASP is really a big example of that. OWASP it's a really when I went to the last big the last big event of OWASP, I really saw really people with a big passion behind of application security and stuff like that, and this is really interesting. And just I just think that if
and you can talk to them, right? So you have all these legends moving around in the halls, and it's just like, hey, how are you doing?
Exactly.
Right?
For sure.
So
it's really interesting.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very small community at the same time, and we actually are very dependent on each other to be able to deliver great application security to the rest of the world.
Yes, interesting. Johan, I have a question that I remember. You work with Java, .NET, JavaScript, and most part of the technologies. And what do you think? What were some common security mistake developers forget about? Because so far we already talk about about frameworks, about tools that you can use to improve the development process. But what do you think? What do you think that are the common security mistakes developers forget about?
Yeah. Okay. So very good question. And I think that everyone have their own opinion about this, but here's mine. And I'll give a bit of background on why I think this is the case. And so the most common mistake is that you don't patch your software on a regular basis. I believe that is the most common mistake. I mean, there are a great number of people out there that use open source software. And this software, some of it gets regularly patched, some of it doesn't. And but the problem is that if you don't patch that software, it will eventually, someone will be able to find security vulnerabilities in that software and report it. And so your software will also be vulnerable. And so when you don't patch your software becomes vulnerable and eventually dies. And so when the most common mistake I see that developers does is that they build it, they release it, and then it just remains there and doesn't get the maintenance that it actually requires to actually continue to keep it secure. So that is the most common mistake. And I can have worked on numerous projects where basically software was developed one time only and it was never maintained afterwards. And what eventually happened is that someone came along and said that, oh no, now we cannot continue with this software anymore. We have to start from scratch because there's nobody that's able to maintain it.
Yeah.
So that I think is one of the bigger mistakes that I see that people do, because it's so easy to fix it. It requires very, very little effort to be able to patch the software and make sure that it's up to date.
Yeah, right now with AI, it's more easy. Yeah, and it's really, if you stop it to think, fix one issue inside one application in the past. In the past, let me say, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, before this boom of AI, before ChatGPT and stuff like that, the community in this time aware had many content, many material, and many acknowledgements, documentations, and stuff like that to help us to fix issues and things like that. And right now with AI, it's more easy. You of course, have my recommendation about that. This is because right now I don't know if you listened this term before, but it's a new term that's vibe coding. It's vibe coding that people just right now say prompts and the AI you creating new applications, but sometimes these people don't have a concern with the code, don't have a concern with the architecture, with the maintenance of this project. And this is really, I think this is a reflect of many vulnerabilities exposed of in internet, in the applications, and okay, things like that. And for front-end frameworks like React, Angular, what do you think that, for example, the important way to prevent, for example, cross-site scripting and supply chain attacks? Because, for example, I just mentioned this cross-site scripting because if you go, for example, to the HackerOne or the another bug bounty platforms, uh, cross-site scripting until now it's basically it's a layer of the vulnerabilities that in 2025 already exist. And what you think right now? It's the better way, of course. Uh, if I if I ask for develop and for a person that know about application security, you probably could say, yeah, you need to sanitize all entires in your applications to avoid, or you can implement web application fire or stuff like. But uh, talking about supply chain, how do you think that it's really the most important way to prevent cross-site scripting? This is just one type of attack that I mentioned here.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned supply chain attacks and you mentioned cross-site scripting. And
Yeah,
to my mind, you need two different solutions to these two. So supply chain attacks, you need to be able to you need to be able to secure supply chain and do all that you need to do there in regard to making sure that your build environment is secure, that you're actually patching in a secure way, that you're doing code reviews and all these things, and that you're just not sort of like just saying yes to everything that comes in, right? And
yeah,
the other part is XSS, and I believe that it's more easier now to prevent XSS than ever before, and that's because of the quality of the web browsers that we have. So there's a
yeah,
lot of good standards for preventing XSS, making sure that the code is secure by default. And it's about preventing eval in the browser, preventing that you can run scripts on your website and all of these kind of things. And all of that is basically done by implementing proper content security policies. So what you should do is actually that you need to check out how these policies actually works and make sure they are strictly enforced. Okay,
okay,
so
okay,
if you haven't really done that, go and do that, because that will make sure that will prevent 99% of all the attacks out there. And then
yeah,
the remaining of the attacks is sort of like stored XSS, and that you should sort of like prevent by actually making sure that you do proper validation when you before sanitization. And if you cannot validate, then make sure that you properly encode the data as text when it's returned back to the user as a response. And so it's all of those things are relatively known, very, very good solutions that's out there, very, very easy to use. You just need to get hold of the resources and the documentation and
yeah,
understand how it works. And it
yeah.
helps to be put your developer hat on when you're actually learning these things.
Yeah, and leverage this view. This is interesting because this is right now. I've been creating another question for you, and in your view, what's the best way to put security in CI/CD pipelines without to slowing down development? Because sometimes uh, I already listen many developers say, okay, I don't implement security here because this is just to slow down the process, development process, and okay. And what do you think that is the best way to put security inside CI/CD pipelines?
The best way, I believe, is to give the developers the tools that they need and make sure that they are enforced. And by that I mean that the code needs to be secure before it actually reaches the trunk. In order to do that, you need to be able to shift left as much as possible. And the better way to do that is actually to empower the developers in regards to implementing secure design and secure coding in a way that they prefer to do things. That's one of the reasons why I do OWASP Cornucopia and gamification. That's one of the reasons why we actually use quality gates and actually give all the developers all the access that they need in order to actually do their work in the SAST and SCA software that we have. And the last part is that we also need to pay attention to make sure that the developers actually understand what these kind of attacks actually does and how they actually work. And so you should also do on a regular basis, you should do some capture the flag events or something like that is fun to do, that can help developers to actually learn something about how these attacks actually are done. And also in order to sort of like make something fun out of learning about application security as well. Don't do boring talking heads presentations and video conferencing stuff and things like that. Do live events where they participate in person and have prizes and do a bit of celebration in order to sort of like make everyone motivated and the application secure.
Yeah, for sure. I really agree with your thinking. I guess that when you found one fun way to implement without to create trouble for people that sometimes that think that their job is not the bare job because all the time I need to look for this environment. It's just code, and I don't make more another thing. I just working a lot. And when you when come person like John, right now you put security in your CI/CD pipeline, person or people just look and say, okay, again another businesses or again another cybersecurity professional try to put your fingers here. But when you right now you have many tools, you have many automated tools. This is really is a question that I have for you. Which ones have actually worked well in real enterprise setups in using business using tools? It's like, for example, right now I'm a sort of SangRep. You probably know SangRep.
Yes, I know that. Know it.
Yeah. And business. I'm sorry, tools like that right now have been helped people and businesses to implement security or to check to create checklists, security checklists. And this is interesting because I have some friends that are focused on application security, and sometimes people say, okay, I use SonarQube, I use Veracode, I use SangRep, I use or whatever. And in your opinion, okay, this is your opinion. Of course, you probably have uh, the the best tool that you think it's more interesting, so that work that you usually do. But which ones have actually worked well in real enterprise setups in using tools like that, SendGraph or Cube, Veracode?
Okay, so in my opinion, actually, I think that all of these tools actually suck. They are really horrible. Most of the times that I actually use them, I just use them as the sort of like the final defense, because I cannot be completely secure that that the new code that comes in has actually been implemented in a secure way. So I am like, because I'm a little bit secure of that, a little bit unsure of that, I make sure that we have those tools, but they mostly report false positives. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
99% of all the findings that I get in these tools, they are false positives without question. And so the best tools is the ones that doesn't report anything, but then the problem is that if they don't report anything, I might feel that actually they may not actually work the way that they are intended. Of course, I think that in regards to tools, it's good to have them because, there are a lot of developers out there, not so many
Mm-hmm.
of us application security engineers. We sort of like need something to herd all the cats. And so that's what we use the tools for. But they cannot be your only defense. They are only there as a crutch
Mm-hmm.
because we are not able to do all of the other things that's even more important, like secure design, pen testing, bug bounty hunting, and all of these things. Those things are actually more important because they make sure that we both define the security requirements and test them afterwards. And so that is sort of like the things that we really, really need to make sure are there in place. And so, and of course, about the implementing secure coding and all these kind of things, that actually
Mm-hmm.
comes when the developers are motivated and empowered to be able to do just that. And so then
Yeah.
you need to have some proper learning in place in order to do that on a regular basis. So I think that tools are great. We need them, and because we have like a large crowd out there that we need to serve, but
Mm-hmm.
we should not worry too much about what type of tool we are using. If I can choose, I would rather choose to use open source tools, especially the ones that's actually developed um, in an open and transparent way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better for the community, it's better
Yeah.
in order to make sure that these tools also are secure in a way. Like you can feel confident that security vulnerabilities and these kind of things gets reported also for the tools that we use in our CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend like go and use OWASP dependency track, use OWASP juice shop, use the OWASP, it's not called OWASP SAP anymore, but at least use the SAP proxy, use all these tools that's actually open source. SemGrep is open source as well, so it's also a
Mm-hmm.
great product to use. I would rather use that than a product that's actually closed source and actually doesn't share anything with the community. But I don't think it's about the tools, it's about the mindset, it's about culture, it's about implementing that in a way that actually resonate with the people around you that you're working with on a daily basis.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And I have many questions for you, bro. I really have many questions. But one interesting question is one common mistake that many application security professionals usually make is how right now I just need to know your opinion about that, of course. How do you manage secrets in different environments with sometimes Kubernetes, AWS, and other platforms? This is really interesting because when I, for example, need to do one mobile penetration testing, it's really common. Sometimes you found keys hard coded in the code, yeah, and stuff like that. And many application security engineers don't know how to manage secrets in different environments. And when you need to, work with Kubernetes, multi-clouds and things like that. I just need to know your opinion about that.
Yeah, okay. So actually, many years ago, I actually started to use a product called HashiCorp Vault. Now, I'm not trying to sell that product in any way, but to me, that marked sort of like the beginning of a whole range of great product that actually implements security management in a great way. And so you actually have all of these kind of vaults or secure secret management solutions that you can actually use in most of these environments. And so the challenge is actually to read the documentation and find out what is the proper solution for the environment that you're actually going to implement your software for. And so if you're doing sort of like Azure, there's Azure Vault. If it's sort of like a multi-cloud solution, it may be HashiCorp Vault, it may be something else. And if you're using pipelines in GitHub, it's sort of like Git secrets and all these kind of things. So there's always a solution out there that you can use. Of course, there are sometimes you end up using a product where that doesn't have any great secret management solution. And in those cases, you just have to be a very creative. And there are ways you can solve these kind of challenges where you have sort of like secret management, where you have sort of like software that doesn't have any secret management solution integrated. But if you have the possibility to do so, go and choose products that actually have that integrated by design. And as long as you do that, you should be fairly safe.
Okay. This is another. I'm right now creating a big weaponization for people that are listening here, because you trust me, many people, not only hackers but many people from application security, you listen this episode, and this insightful. This are really interesting, and leveraging the same topic, talking about compliance. How do you met security architecture with compliance handlers without to making system too complex? Because when you, for example, when you needed to put one standard on one ISO or stuff like that inside, the process, you sometimes, if you don't create the balance between the usability and the security, you create sometimes system too complex? And how do you balance these things?
Well, I think you can balance that by putting people first. Okay, so that don't implement processes depending on the technology that you're actually using, but implement it depending on the people that you work with. And so I think that that's a great way to actually do that. And so the solution is actually unique for every organization out there. It depends on what kind of organization you're working for. And so you need to just keep that in mind to make sure that you put people first. You talk to people and you make sure that they are on board with whatever process you are implementing, to make sure that you have the proper buy-in to do the things that you want to do. And
Get
so
get
feedback
feedbacks
first.
about exactly, yeah.
Yes. And so that as long as you do that, nothing is too complicated. If you implement something and you actually talk to people afterwards, that's when you get into trouble. And in a way, that's very understandable, because it's sort of like the opposite of democracy. It's kind of a way to hamper with the freedoms of the people that you actually work with.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. And privacy. How important is privacy in your project? How do you add into development cycles? Because we already talked about compliance and privacy. How you, okay, the most part of time we talk here on open source projects and open source development, but privacy with many type of regulations around the world. In Europe, you have regulations. When you go to the America, you have another regulations. When you go to the Asia, you have another regulations. And privacy is just sometimes the major problem for many businesses and many people. And this is important to know how you how important it's privacy in your projects and how you add into development cycles.
Well, privacy is very important to the project that I'm working on right now. The companies that we work with, they are very, very concerned about the privacy of the users that they have, basically because these are people that's actually on the boards of the companies that is our clients. So in order to sort of like protect the privacy, one of the things that we actually follow is that we make sure that we don't process personal information. For example, we try not to process sensitive information at all. So in the case that we actually need to process something, we make sure that it's not sensitive. If it's sensitive, it needs to be in very, very secure. It needs to be encrypted. It needs to be end-to-end secured in a way that makes sense for the type of documents and data that you actually are processing. But in order to implement proper privacy, it's the best thing is actually to make sure that you don't process the information. If you
try
don't
to avoid PII.
Try to avoid it altogether. And then that makes for a more privacy-friendly solution.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Okay, and I think that this is my thought about. I try to avoid store PII informations about people, because this is really a trouble in many countries around the world. And then when you like you said, in development process, you really need it's not development process, but in the when you create this is you started to talk about store people data before the development process. You needed to concern with data process before development process, because it's important with many regulations right now, have many concerns around that sometimes can close businesses around the world if you have a leak of informations, and then you usually you need to pay amount of sometimes millions of dollars or millions of euros because your application was leaked and has PII personal information was leaked, and this is really a big trouble and really a big concern about that. And yes. Yeah, this is my I really try to avoid store when I need to audit or when I have opportunity to participate of the begin of the development of a solution. Usually this is my first concern. What the type of the data we need to store that that really important to store while this application it's alive, it's going, and then yeah, this is I have the same thought about, and thank you for sharing your your opinion about that. And talking about a little about talks that you have done tech talks in several companies, and how important is team training to keep people aware of security, in your opinion? This is one thing that sometimes we have a concern about technologies, security measures, security design, and stuff like that. But sometimes many businesses forget to put people in the center of the community. Let's say, and then how important is team training to keep people aware of security, in your opinion?
I believe it's essential. The thing that we are building is an artifact that is based on the collaboration between people. Software is just a way of communicating this artifact. And so that is the code that we are actually sort of like using every day. It's a language in order to collaborate with machines. And so having a culture, having a great culture, having a great community is everything in order to make sure that that software is secure.
Okay, very interesting. And for developers and engineers watching this episode who want to move into DevSecOps or security architecture, what is your, let's say, top advice about that? People that okay, watching this episode and think, okay, I want to be like a Johan, and I want to move to DevSecOps security architecture. What is your top advice for that?
I would say get familiar with all the great open source resources out there from the OWASP Foundation, and make sure that you also tinker around with some of these projects in order to familiarize yourself with some of the concepts and principles behind them. And the more familiar you will get, the more knowledge you will be able to gain. And over time, I think you will be able to transition naturally over to a security role, just because you will, with time, you will see that there are things that you can do that nobody else can do, and therefore other people are coming and asking you stuff that they don't know about. And so naturally you will end up in a position like I am.
Okay. Thank you for that. And what you think that will be the big, okay, in the next 5 years? What you think about, okay, because with AI, this is really a big oracle around that. And but this is interesting. I ask this question usually. Okay, this is really hard to think about. Okay, in the future. But in your opinion, what do you think be big in the next 5 years?
Oh, within IT or within security?
Yeah, application security in general.
Yes. So I think that one of the things that we do see is that we're integrating these artificial intelligence solutions into our CI/CD pipelines, and that will
Okay.
bring about a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities as well, especially in regards to make sure that we have less false positives, so that we can sort of like do more automated controls of secure coding and these kind of things. Of course, there are things that is hard to do with AI today, and I think that will remain hard to do in the future as well.
Yeah.
But I think agents and having agents that are able to sort of like do more application security on your behalf is going to be a very interesting thing. The challenge is, of course, to make sure that they actually consider everything involved in doing secure software development. I don't think that is possible. I think there's sort of like business requirements and a lot of things regarding privileges and principles that you cannot so easily actually feed into an AI. It actually requires a human being. The
Yeah.
other part is, of course, that the further away that we move from software development, the more challenges we will see in being able to maintain the systems that we are building. So we may actually see that you will have more of these sort of like pop-up quickly
Yeah.
quick and dirty software solutions that's actually meant to sort of like cater for a very specific purpose, coming about and then disappearing again, and then something new comes up and then disappearing. So I think sort of like more of these throwaway products will probably be implemented, and of course that's very beneficial for the business, I think, in the way that they can sort of like be able to experiment more with the functionality, but the challenge is there to be able to do that in a secure way. I think that we are already seeing some like problems with this, with for example, AI chat clients that actually
Yeah.
spews racist content and these kind of things. That's something that probably is going to be improved in the future, but it's still, I think, going to remain a challenge. The other part is, of course, that AI is fantastic in order to do application security testing. Yes.
Yeah.
So already now we are seeing in the United States that one of the best pen testers out there is actually an AI solution.
Yeah.
And so that's pen testing might be one of the practices that's actually about to die out. And over time, maybe we will have see actually pen test solutions that you actually plug into your software and they do all the pen testing for you in the proper way. And so less focus might be done in actually making sure that the software is secure upfront. And so, but that will also bring about the same challenges that I mentioned before, that who is going to maintain these solutions? Are we just going to build sort of like easy and simple software solutions that's just going to be around for a month or two and then take them down and then build something new? Or are we going to build something that's meant for lasting? And how are we going to sort of like be able to bridge that? Having both sort of like software that is built for lasting a long time and software that's just meant for lasting for a short time. And how are we going to be able to find people that can do both of these things? Because it requires completely different mindsets.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, it's really much more harder to find, and I think this is combined or to join skills, people, and sometimes not skills, but people, tools, and frameworks, and things like that. And yeah, this is a big challenger. And Johan, it's great having you here today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and stories with us. For everyone watching, follow us, subscribe on YouTube, and listen on Spotify for more stories like that with hackers, with security experts around the world. And yeah, Johan, say something to the audience. Say something to close this the big episode.
Okay, thank you very much for listening and coming to this video and seeing us talk about application security. It has been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Milton.
Thank you.
It was very nice to be able to talk to you. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like to ask me, please feel free to get in touch with me on Blue Sky or LinkedIn or on Mastodon. You will find me there. Just look for Uncle Joe.
Exactly. And please don't forget to follow him, like he said, on LinkedIn. What the next?
LinkedIn, Blue Sky, or Mastodon.
Blue Sky.
You can probably find me by looking for me. Look for my last name or look for Uncle Joe, and you will find me.
Okay. Yeah. And one more time, Johan, thank you again. And
thank
you. This home, it's your home too. And see you next time.
See you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.